What's up, Francis? I am so excited. I've been looking forward to talking with you, having these conversations. First of all, thank you, because I know you're a busy wife, mom, businesswoman, all the things, and you're making a lot of stuff happen. So, first of all, welcome to my house.
Thank
Welcome
you.
to my cup of conversation. I hope you got your cup. In this case, I got a
I do.
glass. I
I got the
wanted to.
Golden Girls.
Oh, the Golden Girls. I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I was going to do some coffee, then I was going to do tea, but it's like 300 degrees, even though it's the end of September. And I'm like, you know what? Let me do
My
something
house is freezing. So I was
refreshing.
like, hot coffee
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep it at 70 in here and the guys want it on 68. And I'm like, all right, I'm not even gonna fight. I'm just making my coffee.
Exactly. Exactly. So I want this to, first of all, well, second of all, I probably already thanked you, but seriously, thank you for spending time to do this with me. And so this is just like we're just gonna chat. We're just gonna have girl chat, just as if you were in my own house, and we would have a little something to drink, and we would just kick it about, the things that you've got going on, how you do what you do, why you do what you do, and all of the things. So let's just kind of jump right into it, Miss Francis Gillard. I want to say
Okay.
Gillard. I want to say right. I know you're a newlywed, relatively newlywed. So,
Yeah,
but you and I met, gosh, how many years ago? Five, maybe 5 years, six? No, no, it had to be long.
almost. That was like, yeah, like 4-ish years almost.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
2021.
No, was it since the pandemic or before the pandemic?
It was like right in the
Yeah,
heart of when it was
yeah.
starting. So,
That's right. That's right. That's right. We were both in the same company and getting used to this whole new, online stuff that we had to do at
mhm.
that point. And so one of the things that I always admired about you was that you always made no excuses. Like no matter what was going on, no matter what the challenges were, you always showed up with the best of energy. You always had a smile on your face. You always had something positive to say. And that was consistent throughout my entire time knowing you in business. And now, knowing you in a whole different realm now outside of business, it's like, this is you. This is really you. And you've just continued to take off and go higher and higher and add new things and go into different directions. And I honestly admire that because to do that, being a young mom with everything that's happening right now in the world, that's not easy, and you show up every day. Like I follow you on Instagram, and we're going to make sure that people can follow you too, because, showing up is half the battle, as they say, and then following through is the rest and taking action steps and all of that. So I would love to know, because I know if I've got my background right about you, you were in IT before even stepping into like the field of network marketing, right? And this is how I met you, was through network marketing years ago. You weren't in IT then.
No,
So
so
tell me what your
ooh, we
background
got
was.
we got some things to
Woo!
cover. So,
Tell me what your
no,
background.
first of all, thank you for having me. Like the minute you brought this up, I was like, this is so smart because I think we're just in a time where I know for me, and I won't speak for everybody else, but I'm like, I want to know that real people go through real things and that I'm not the only one that struggles internally sometimes, and externally because life is crazy, but. So no, I had no background in IT actually. My entire background, we can like rewind a whole lot. I actually wanted to be a teacher when I first was like coming out of high school. I had worked in childcare. I went to a vocational high school, so I was like half of the day childcare and half like actual classes. And so I
Mhm.
was like, yeah, I'll just go be a teacher. But through that, I had always worked in banking. Like that was the core of my career was banking. Most big banks, I've probably
Okay.
worked for them. And as I was going through my teaching, I'm like, I'm making more now as a banker than I would ever make as a teacher.
Yeah.
And as a young 23-year-old, you're like, do I really want
Right.
you get the actual experience in the classroom and you're like, I don't really know. Now I feel like I've always known I had some kind of a gift to teach, but I didn't really know what that looked like. So I
Mm.
just kept going in the financial industry, did all the things I did, like retail side, a little bit of commercial, a little bit of investments. And I was working at an insurance company when the pandemic started happening. And so Amara was one, that's my daughter for anybody listening. She was one at the time, and I'll never forget like the struggle of like bringing the pump to work and like having to go in the mother's room, like,
Right,
all the real stuff that as a young mom, I was kind of like, man, I didn't know that this is what like motherhood would be like. I
right,
actually said I didn't want kids. And I know that sounds crazy to some people, but not everybody has like that, the desire.
right.
And so, my stepson, which he's mine, I've had him since he was born. He's 10 now, but he was, I think, 5 at the time that that was happening. And Amara was
Wow.
1, or he was 6 and Amara was 1. And I just remember like, oh snap, I've built this career in financial services. The pandemic happens and that shook everybody up. So companies are like trying to figure out. And I remember them telling us we were going to get laid off. And it was like this weird feeling of
Mm,
like, it's personal, but it's not, because when you think of business in general, like if a company had to consider Francis's family, Sakina's family, like
right.
they would run a business. So I think from that moment, and that's how we, got introduced, we were at the same company. But I think from
Mm-hmm.
that moment, I made a decision just with my life in general, like forget companies, whether it's corporate or what we were doing in network marketing. I just made a decision that the only constant thing that's always going to come up is stuff is going to change. I was a new mom. I
Fact.
really didn't want to be at work. So it was really a blessing in disguise. I know people think I'm crazy when I say that, but I'm like, I wanted more than anything to just be home with my daughter. She was only 1. I didn't really get to experience like the raw being at home motherhood part that I wanted, but that
Mm-hmm.
layoff allowed me to do that. So, you always look back and
Mm-hmm.
you're like, I'm thankful for that part of my journey, even though in the midst of it, it was a little personal. I'm like, okay,
Right.
I gotta
During the
figure out my
time, it's
career
just like,
move.
oh no, is this a good thing or not? Yeah, I
Exactly.
get that.
So, but no, I had no IT background. Everything was financial.
I don't know why I was thinking IT. Did you later on get into IT?
Yeah. So at
Okay, I
that
was gonna say
company that
that's
we were
where.
at, yes, I learned like
That's
stuff
right.
about blockchain technology, and I decided to take like a position
That's
helping
right.
like utilize the knowledge that I had in finance and insurance to tokenize information like on the blockchain. That probably means nothing to some of y'all that are going to listen to this.
Okay, I was gonna say
But
I know
that's
IT.
where,
That's
yeah,
right.
but I was
Yeah.
like, it's a cool opportunity. Like there, and it was just again the part of me that felt like things are always going to change. And if I could just stay flexible, I think I'll be fine. Like,
Let me ask you this, that because that's a perfect point. You started out thinking you were going to become a teacher. You go into baking, you start a family, and then things happen, not, and then you went into the IT world, learned everything that you could, about blockchain, and saw another opportunity where you could roll that information, that knowledge over into an IT company. What is it? Because a lot of times people are scared of change. They freak out. We know unfortunately, there were some pretty sad stories during the pandemic. People lost their jobs, and some people just, had mental breakdowns because of it. No judgment on anyone, that it was a tough time. We had never experienced anything like that. But like you said, one thing we know for sure is always going to happen, and that's change. Some people can roll with it like, water rolls off the back of a duck, and some are stuck and frozen by this chain. And here you are, change rather, and here you again, young baby, raising a second child who's 5 or 6, which is still a baby at that age. You know what I mean? And going through these changes, what made you decide to push through? Like, what gave you the drive to push through? Because it's easy to say, well, I got kids, I got to feed them. Well, we know that. You know what I mean? We know
right.
kids are good. One thing for sure, parents are going to make sure their kids are going to get fed in most cases, right?
Mhm.
So we know sometimes that's not enough. A lot of times people say, what is your why for doing whatever? And people will say the kids, it's got to be something stronger than that, because the kids can be fed off McDonald's dollar menu. Not recommending that to anybody, but I'm just
Right.
saying, you know what I mean? So what makes you continue to push through and get and take things to the next level while raising a family, while having other obligations? Why are you steady, or not why, but how do you keep pushing through and not getting sucked into the downward spiral that can happen for a lot of people?
Mhm. Man, it's a fully loaded question because I feel like there's a couple of different parts. And I think one of the first ones is my faith because you got to be plugged into your source. That might be different for some people.
Mhm.
But I think that sometimes when you're not plugged into whatever your spiritual source may be, you start to like naturally, we live in a world that your identity starts to be found in so many things. And there's
Mhm.
my child, but
That's all right.
your identity starts to really get like you start to get confused about what that actually means, right? So
Mm.
when you're not plugged into your source, hey, it's give me just a moment, okay? When you're not plugged into your source, you tend to run to things, and that might be like your career or, you
Mm.
know, a specific environment. So that's a big part of it is I think I just always tried to get back to a place where I was grounded to know like all this external stuff is just stuff at the end of the day. Like all of it is
Mhm.
temporary in a sense, which is
Mhm.
where I think like the flexibility to change comes from because I know like this could be gone, something new can come.
Mhm.
I have a coach in my life that tells me, Francis, if you're willing to change, where you are right now could be the worst it'll ever be, right? That means
Mm.
it could
Good.
just get better for you. But if you're not willing to change and be okay with change, right now might be the best it'll ever be.
Oh.
It's really a mindset,
Mm.
is making a decision mentally that I'm human, and as humans, we battle like that, the spiritual side and like the I want to do stuff side, or I don't want
Mhm.
to do certain things.
Right.
But for me, I think something that just keeps me always like what my favorite question, and I used to ask this to people in business, I always use this in my personal life, is what is my alternative? Right? If I don't get up and decide to be okay with change, or, as parents, right? We could speak as parents. You don't always wake up and feel like doing the stuff. Like, can we
Right.
just say that as parents? Some
Right.
days I don't want to get up earlier than the kids and make sure all their stuff is done and, ironing out uniforms and me packing lunches. Like, I don't always want to do that.
That's real. That's
And nobody
real.
wants to say that, right? Like you see all
Yeah.
these cute
Like
videos on the
this is
internet of
this is
like,
what my day is like, and this is what I do, and it's like,
yeah, like day in the life of a mom. Listen, half of the time I don't want to do this stuff, but
mhm.
if you just go back to that question, what's the alternative? What's the alternative if I don't pack these lunches for my kids? They pay the consequence of a decision that I didn't make, essentially, right? Because not making one is still a decision. So
Right.
with life stuff, I've just always asked myself, what's the alternative? When I moved, so I originally grew up on the East Coast. I live in Indiana, but I
Mhm.
moved here in 2010 with a suitcase and a dream to go stay at my father's house, who I had no relationship with really. So
Wow.
I was just going off of hope and opportunity. But even then I was 19,
Mhm.
even then at 19 years old, my question was still, well, Francis, what's the alternative? My husband's dad, before he passed away, he used to say, if you ever have like that want to move out of the state that you grew up in, maybe it's what you know what awaits you back home. You can always come
Mm.
back to this, but you don't know what's in that place that you're curious about. So when I was 19, that
Wow.
was my mindset. Like, I don't know how I'm about to do this. I don't have a job waiting for me there. I don't have a relationship with this dude. Like, I don't
Wow.
know, but I know what's in New York City, and I just didn't want that kind of life. So you essentially is question number one, what is the alternative? But then the
Mhm.
second part is you got to make a decision, like whatever that might be. And we make so many little decisions every day that I
Mhm.
just think if you focus on like the small things, you'll always be okay. Like with the mindset of what's the alternative? Okay, well, if I don't go to the gym, the alternative is in 10 years from now, my bones will probably hurt. Like I know those
Right.
sound small, but if you just treat life like that, if
Oh,
somebody
that's
invites you to a coffee shop, somebody you don't know, well, what's the alternative? You might miss out on a great relationship with a person that could become a best friend. Like you just never know.
that's so true. And that's so good too. I love the fact of with what you said that your coach told you, because this could be the best that it's going to be, or it could be the worst that it's going to be. Just, but you won't know, depending on how you look at it, going ahead, taking those chances. I mean, being at 19 years old, leaving New York, coming to Indiana, be with your dad. You don't really have a relationship with him. You don't have anything else there. but you always knew what was back in New York. So you could always go
Mhm.
back. Like, I love that.
And I'm a
I
mama's
love that.
girl through and through. I left out that detail,
Oh,
but I'm a ride or die with my mom. And
right.
that's hard, like to look at this person who gave everything for me, and I'm the youngest, to
Yeah.
say, I'm about to just leave you. We're all we know, but I gotta go. And that was hard.
Wow.
But again, what was my alternative? And I always knew, like, my mom, man, you deserve better. Like, she didn't live a horrible life, but
Yeah.
she deserved better. And I was just like, well, if I go, then maybe I could go make something of myself and I could
Wow.
help make things better. So I
Wow.
think you just everything comes down to like a series of decisions, and you're not always going to get it right. That's the other part too. Like, if somebody's really listening to this and you feel like you're in a place where you don't do well with change. Me and my husband are polar opposites. He does not do well with change. We are
Mm-hmm.
completely opposite. I'm the risk taker, and he's like, I got to think this through. Like, he's a very like A personality. But
Mm-hmm.
I always tell people, like, if you're in that place where you feel like you struggle with change, start with just making small committed decisions, because there is no right or wrong thing. A lot of times we fear making
Mm.
a decision because we think like, man, Sakina, I don't want to do that because, girl, I think it might just go all the way bad. Well, see, the thing is, you don't know until you've made a decision, because it could go all the way right. But naturally, we're programmed to always go left, like, oh, this thing might not work out, or I'm scared. But that's just like your natural mode of, you were created for fight or flight. If you're in danger, your body is naturally going to say, get out of here. As
Right.
a parent, if your
Right.
child seems like they're in danger, you automatically go into protection mode. Like,
Yeah.
but so we're the same, but we got to get out of this space too. And that's like the number one thing just in decision making, is get out of the headspace that I'm gonna be right or wrong if I make this decision. Because there really is no such thing. If you make a decision that turns out amazing, then good job. Like, that went great. Whoa, that went better than expected. But even if
That's
it
so
doesn't,
true.
like,
Oh,
I
that's
think
so
this is
good.
the part that we're so scared of, but that's just like your makeup as a human, is you're so scared to do that thing, because then you're like, well, what if this thing blows up? What if it goes left? Like, even dating is kind of like that too, but
Oh,
you're
yes.
so scared of, like, you fear the unknown, but the truth is, like, there is no right or wrong decision. Everything is just
Mm.
perspective. Like, just make the decision, and who cares if it doesn't really turn out exactly how you thought. But see, I think that's what people struggle with the most.
Yep.
They're afraid to have to accept that that thing didn't work out. But that's because we've made like this weird man-made ruler of like a measurement of your life. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's probably could be a whole nother live. But
Right. But I think you're right on it because you just kind of just made me think about how, I was saying, okay, I'm going to do this podcast and I'm going to go, and like I was speaking earlier before we even started, the recording part. And I was like, okay, I know what mics I want. I researched the mics. I was like, okay, I can take this room that I'm in. It's an extension off of another room. And I'm like, okay, I can soundproof this room. Like I had everything laid out on exactly how I was going to do it, how I was going to set it up, and the lighting and all of this stuff. And I did so much research on what I was going to do for
Mhm.
this podcast, right? And I started watching other podcasts about podcasts. I started doing all the Google research and all this and all this and all this. And then weeks and weeks and weeks were going past because, of course, I couldn't just do that 24/7. But I started spending all this time researching and trying to get it right and trying to get it perfect and looking at other podcasts and seeing their lighting and how crisp and clear and this, and then the more that I did the research on it and the more other podcasts that I watched, it was like I was just moving further and further away from it. I was like, oh my God, and then it was just like, well, what if I get into it and I don't like it? And now this, or what if nobody watches, or what if nobody listens? And then I've got to put it on Spotify and this. So all this stuff was going on in my head. And I was like, literally one day, and which I think when I made that video and posted it like last week, and I literally just turned my phone on and I was like, listen, guys, I'm gonna redoing some things on my YouTube channel. This is what I'm gonna do, and I was just like, it
Mhm.
was so off the cuff.
Yep.
And then when I did it off the cuff like that, then it was like, okay, now I have to do it. but I'm not going to go into, the microphone, this and the other. I'm like, I'm just going to do it the way I want to do it.
Hmm.
I'm trying to at first I was trying to look at other people's standards of what a podcast is or isn't and this and the other, and all of that stuff is good. I mean, there's some bomb podcasts out there. I
Yeah.
love them. I subscribe to a lot and watch
Hmm.
a lot, but it was just like that's just not really what I really want to do in that format. I want to have conversations with people. I don't want to be worried about this and that and the lighting, and I don't even really, and this may sound crazy, but I don't really want to worry about the algorithms. Of course, I'm going to
Yeah.
upload this on my YouTube. Of course, I want people to watch it. I want people to get value from it. I don't want people to watch it because I've got the lighting perfect or I got the perfect
Hmm.
microphone or I've got the perfect background. I want them to watch it because they're getting real value from it to make real changes in their life. And they're learning from people that are going through these changes, real people that
Hmm.
have real lives that are not, I don't want them to see the after effect and then we
Yeah.
start talking about, oh, what you did. No, tell me what you're doing now.
Yep.
I want people to know what they're doing now. That's why I call it like a cup of conversations, because it's like
Yeah.
these are conversations we would have if you were here in Arkansas in my living room. I would be like,
Yeah.
girl, because so the other thing I want to know too. So thank you for that, for bringing that up about making that decision to go and move with your dad at 19 years old, and you know stop worrying about the right or wrong, because that's literally what I had to do in order to be
Hmm.
on this Zoom with you today. you
Yeah.
know and so you said something else. You said you have a
Yeah.
coach. So now here's my question: what made you decide to get a coach? And because, so many people, we know everybody's got coaching programs and things like that, and there's some bomb coaches out there.
Yeah.
But sometimes we can get so caught up in thinking that we've got it all figured out, or we can get it all figured out, and we don't need any outside help. We don't need even, mental therapy and therapy. It's almost,
Got one of those too.
yeah, you know what I mean? It's like it used to be so much stigma attached to,
Hmm.
getting mental help, especially in people of colors, in
Yeah.
our cultures. It's just something that you just didn't do or didn't talk about. But now, thankfully, that's more and more open. And so, when did you realize that you wanted to have a coach, and what steps did you take in order to find the right coach for you?
So, man, well, it comes back to something that you said with your response to like your experience just starting cup of conversation, like real experience is you got to figure out what you want, right? Because you, like you said, you were going and you were looking at these podcasts just for inspiration. Like, there's nothing wrong with going to find
Right.
inspiration in
Mm-hmm.
places.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as you discover yourself more and more, and you start to ask yourself hard questions about, like, what do I want? I don't necessarily want 5 million viewers. I mean, if they come, that's great. But what I
Mm-hmm.
really want is the person on the other side to get a real experience, is what you were basically saying.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like coaching and mentorship, and I think they kind of serve separate roles just depending on where you are with life, thing that you're trying to accomplish, it still came back to exactly that. What is it that I was looking for? Like, what did I want? Because
Mm-hmm.
when you don't know what you want, you're kind of in a place where you're just going to keep trying to figure it out by yourself. But
Mm-hmm.
to only come to a place eventually after you start like dragging your tail around in circles to realize I really didn't know what I wanted, but I do now. So then you naturally start to go try to go seek out help.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I found that to be true, especially in like the realm of therapy. I'm fully Hispanic. I grew up in a household with a single mom. We didn't have somebody else outside of her to talk to. Like, there wasn't therapy, it wasn't talked about. It was like, oh, you'll be fine,
Right.
part of life. And it's like,
Right.
well, oddly enough, we all grew up and we needed therapists. So it's kind of interesting how that worked out. But I say that to say, like, once I knew that as an adult, and I'll give a super transparent example. If anybody has ever listened to a podcast that I used to have, I talked about this openly, is my relationship with my husband. You couldn't ask me 3.5 years ago if I was ready to marry him. I didn't know what it looked like to even try to be a wife.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that I was a lot of the person who needed the help. Like,
Mm.
so I got to a place though, still back to what I'm saying, like you have to get to a place where you start to acknowledge this is no longer what I want, But deeper than that, what do you actually want? Because so many of us know what we don't want, right? Like, oh, I don't
Right.
want a
It's
person that's like this,
easy.
or I don't
Yep.
want
It's
this.
easy to say
That's
that.
easy because you're programmed to go like to the negative space. But when you get to this place where you're like, no, I know what I do want. So I finally got to a place like just using the example with my husband now. We weren't married back then, but we had
Hmm.
been together for a long time. And I just got to this place where I was like, I be married, but I don't want to be married just to say that we're married.
Right.
Like, I want a healthy marriage. Okay, Francis, well, what does that look like? And here was my answer. I have no idea because I had never seen an example of that.
Yeah.
So once I knew what I wanted, now I have to go find people that have more experience that can
Mhm.
help me kind of fill in the gaps because sometimes we want to, and I think wanting to figure it out by yourself is like a way deeper thing than
Oh,
just like people trying to figure it out. Like people throw around the word like trauma and childhood trauma, and all of that is very valid. But
right.
wanting to do things on your own like that it does come from a way deeper place, whether you want to label it as trauma or just life experience, however people want to talk about it.
It's
But
that
my
ego too
my
that'll get in the
yes,
way.
ego
And
and
yep.
pride. So for me, it was ego, it was pride, it was I was raised in a single household, like with a single parent, and she didn't have anybody she could ask for help.
Right.
So seeing that, you're only going to reproduce your environment and what you're around consistently.
Yep.
So here I was, a young woman. Well, I was 30 at that time. I'm 30 years old. I had never seen anything healthy like that. Okay, what does this
Hmm.
look like? Well, you don't know. So just back to like how going through school, when you don't know the answer to something, you ask the teacher. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, if I don't know what that looks like, where can I go? So, we
Hmm.
both shared a similar mentor that taught you like you got to be solution oriented.
Hmm.
Back to my question, what's the alternative? If I don't figure this out, we will not have anything fruitful here. So we got to figure something out.
Yeah.
So for me, like therapy as one example was just, okay, I knew that I wanted something healthy, but I had no idea what that looked like. And I had
Right.
to drop the pride and ego and be okay with we live in a world now where like people don't want to share transparency and truth, but I had to
Right.
be okay with us both being able to sit down and putting it all out on the line with someone that we knew could guide us, because then here's the difference, right? I didn't want to go find somebody who would just give me advice. I wanted wisdom.
Mm.
Like
Mm.
wisdom that
Mm.
aligned with our personal beliefs. So I'm not going to go pick just a random marriage and family counselor. I personally, I'm a Christian, so I wanted somebody that
Hmm.
aligned with that. So that's the part too, where we go back to something that you said of knowing what you wanted so that you weren't looking around trying to duplicate somebody else's stuff. What is it that
Hmm.
you want? Because then you got to find things that align with that, not what
Yeah.
the world is telling me like my marriage should look like.
Right.
So, in terms of a coach, like even for business, as an example, I had to get to a place in business where you just admit to yourself, okay, if I've never done a particular thing, maybe you're in a new industry for somebody listening to this, but for me, I still was in a similar industry. Like I've always done something financial, even but I knew that as a person new to the company that we were in, I didn't know what the heck I was doing in terms of like getting the results that I wanted to get. So
Hmm.
you have to be around people that have done that before, because then they can better guide you. You can't go ask somebody. That's like trying to get on a plane with somebody who's never flown a plane. We are not leaving, okay? Because I'm not trying to die today. But it's
Right.
the same thing with anything. So I think with coaching and mentorship, you got to realize so many people want to look for a shortcut in so many things.
Ooh.
Relationships,
Mm.
fitness, every
Man, this
business,
social media, I
everything.
call it
Everything.
microwave mindset.
Yeah,
It's like
like
we
you want to
want
put
it
in like
in.
in the Spy Kids movie. If anybody's ever seen Spy Kids, you know how they put like the meal in the microwave and like a whole McDonald's meal came out. I feel like that's really the generation that we're living in,
Yeah.
down to
That's so
relationship.
true. And that's what I was talking about with having conversations like this, because a lot of times we see the after effect, and someone will talk about, well, now I'm at $50 million a year, or whatever, and this is what I did to get there. But it's like, but let I want to talk to the people as they're on their way, like what that process looks like, unpacking what did you do. So when you said coaching, I was like, a lot of times people know they should get a coach. They think about it, they see all the ads for it and, promos and stuff for it. But it's like, That's why I wanted to know, why did you decide to get a coach? And then, like you said, you wanted someone, when it came to your marriage, someone that had similar beliefs or the same beliefs and backgrounds, so where they're coming from, because they have to be in alignment with you.
Mhm.
And so on the business side, it sounds like you found a coach that you were in alignment with too, and that's
Yeah, and
important.
somebody that you said something really important that, I'll admit there was a point in business where it was like just excitement for me and I just wanted to be around the energy because I'm a high energy person
You
naturally.
are.
Everybody
You
knows me
always
in
have been.
real
I'm like,
life.
I need to let me rub off
But
on her, or have her rub off on me.
I think I still, too, myself, though, got to a point of like, I want to be around people, even in business, that are not afraid to show me the process. Like, and I'm thankful for this, like some of the mentors that we had. Yeah, there was a not so good bunch, but that's in every industry.
Mm-hmm.
But then we had our bunch that did show us transparently, like this is what the grind really looks like, or this is what this really looks like. And
Mm-hmm.
so now I have a coach that in business, like he's also become a really good friend of mine because when you start working closely with a coach, a lot of parts like you'll start to see why they do business the way they do when you start to get to see some of how they do their personal life. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful that he's local to me, which I've never had a coach that was local to me, which really
Nice.
changed the game for me. Like we can go have lunch, like just doing
Yeah.
little things so that you get to know this person and
Yeah.
you can see, like, okay, this person's been in business the last 24 years, but he's very transparent about what every phase of that looked like. And I think we need more of that because, to
Mm-hmm.
your point, I don't feel like enough people are showing the process. Everybody wants to see like the end result.
Yeah.
But the problem with what we've created with that is that now people are not willing to do what it takes to get an end result. It doesn't even mean like there's a specific thing that somebody's working to, but just end results in general. Because what we don't realize is that part doesn't matter as much. I know it sounds cliche,
Oh, it's so
and what people
true.
don't forget, like people forget that, okay, when you get there, there's going to be something different now. So what you're really missing is what's supposed to happen for you internally throughout all of that stuff. The letting down, the if you're in entrepreneurship, the seasons of, business, like you're missing
Mm-hmm.
out what you're supposed to develop during that time. But it's the same thing in relationships too. Like everybody would ask me and my husband questions like, when are y'all getting married? And I would always say to myself, why are people so fascinated with like the wedding and not enough with like the actual marriage? Because this
Like,
stuff, listen, I'm the first one to be up here like, this is the hardest, most rewarding thing I've ever done in my life.
absolutely. Wouldn't it be great if people said, instead of asking, when is someone getting married? Wouldn't it be great if they asked, what are y'all doing to prepare to get married? Are you wanting to get married, first of all? And if you are, what are you doing to get prepared to be married? And it has nothing to do with the financials. I mean, that's a part of it. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong,
Yeah.
but the internal stuff, because we bring, like, when my children have got married, and when my daughter, she's the most recent one to have got married, it'll be 2 years in February. And it's like, you know you're marrying that person, and you're marrying that family, and you're marrying all of that person. And it's like, you have to know, I mean, it's so much more than just the ceremony. It's going back to
Oh,
what you just said, the
much.
end result. We all look at the end result,
Yep.
and it's like, that means nothing,
And
you
it's so
know.
crazy though when you hear, and that just tells you like the kind of world that we live in, because when you just hear people's questions about relationships, business, their question is tailored to a specific result. And
Yep.
it's like the longer we live like that, you'll always keep chasing something you're never gonna find.
You'll
Because
always be chasing the result. I saw something on Facebook or Instagram or something, and it was a question that someone else had posed in this group. And the question was, she was asking, I think she was I want to say she was a financial coach or something. I can't quite remember now, but she said her father told her own dad, and he told her this like recently, that she needed to go buy a new car because she can't show up as someone's coach with driving an old car, and her car that she has is paid for, right? And so, and she said financially, I know it makes sense to own versus financing. And this is one of the things that she teaches, right? I don't know about her whole thing. And so she was just asking, what do you all think? Do you all respect someone more based on what they look like they have? Or do you respect someone more who's showing you this is what I have and this is how I've done it, and it's paid for? And so, like, some of the comments, it was really interesting because, you always go to the comments.
Uh-huh, with the
And so some of
popcorn.
the right, so some of the comments was like, well, girl, if you can afford it, go on and get you that new, whatever the car was. But most of them, thankfully, were like, listen, if people only want you to coach them based off of what you drive, they're the wrong people. Like, that was a consensus over most of the comments. And I was like, yes, because, you know, and I may be wrong, but I think the days should be, I don't know. I was just going to say, I think the days are gone where people focus on what you have, but really they're not. They're probably even more so just because of social media.
Yeah.
But when you're looking for real substance,
Yeah.
because I've known a lot of people, I've been in situations myself where I was driving some things and financing some things. And it's funny how you said up here, and we say it all the time, I own this, I own it. It's like, no, you don't. The bank owns it.
Right.
The
Right.
bank owns it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And that stuff can own you. And not saying
Yep.
that you can't go get anything new and
Right.
anything nice, not at all. But it's like we just have to be so careful about what we put up on a pedestal
Yep.
as what it is we want to have for our lives, because we start trying to attain something that's really based on what somebody else's opinion is. And in reality, you're not even happy. You
Yeah,
know what
when
I
I was
mean?
younger, I got taught, I think it was my mom or somebody when I was younger used to say to me, actually, it might have been my fourth grade teacher. I'll never forget him.
I,
But he used to say, the further don't like be careful, like when you covet other people's situation or the lifestyle or whatever. Because he would say the furthest thing into someone's home you can see is the roof, meaning like you have no idea. And I just think it comes down to values. Like what I value is totally different. So for her, it's funny that you told that story because I get a similar response from people. Like I drive a mom minivan, it fits my kids. I'm
Mhm,
happy with it. I don't got
mhm.
a car payment,
Right.
but I'm
Hello.
in the same position. I'm a financial coach. But see, the difference is I'm not coaching people necessarily that have crazy different values than I do. A lot of them
Hmm.
value the same things I do. Like I want my kids
Hmm.
to have great experiences and my daughter has special needs. So I think too it comes down to your values. If you value those material type of things, to your point, there's nothing wrong with it, but
Right.
it doesn't necessarily align with what I value. And I think as
Right.
people too, that's why you got to be careful to not look at, and again, like we just live in a different time with social media and it has
We
so much
do.
good to it, but it also has like, I tell people just pay attention to wordplay sometimes. Why do you think Instagram Reels are called Instagram Reels? They're 7 seconds of someone's reality, like their reality that
Right.
they get to curate for you, right? So
Exactly.
just being mindful to get off of social media and just know what you that when you come across a lot of this content and other people who have different values, you don't sway just because of how something looks. You can stick to but if nobody ever takes time to think about what they value, if they don't take time to
Yeah.
build
Ooh.
authentic relationships with people, it's like you will be swayed every single time because the minute that you're trying to stay in a lane, but you see something different, if you don't know what you value and you don't know what you want for you, then you're gonna go left and
You're
right every
going.
time left
It's
and
like the
right comes
squirrel.
up.
Exactly. It's like, oh, I want that.
Uh-huh.
I should be doing, like, no.
Yep. Or
If,
let me
like
go
you
get a
said,
car because now they said the interest rates are lower. Girl, you know you didn't need no new car.
right.
Or didn't want one.
Right. I
Like you
saw
really didn't
the
want it.
thing, right. The Fed cut interest rates, and it's like, so now all these people, and I get it. I get it. Trust and
Mhm.
believe, I totally get it. But
Yeah.
I like what you said too about knowing what your values are, because when you know what your values are, when things are brought to you, you won't be swayed. You might give it a second thought. You might go, okay. But then you know what your goals are, what your values are, what is most important to you, which goes back to why I decided to do this conversation like this, as opposed to, because I was trying to, I was like that squirrel. Well, maybe I should,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh no, that's not what I want.
Mm.
So let me, get focused and get clear.
Yeah.
Something else I'd like to know too, when did you know, because you've had, like you said, you worked in the banking industry, you're making more money than you were as a teacher, and then like you said, IT, but I also know that you're a bomb entrepreneur. Like you are a bomb businesswoman. You're a financial coach. You have, businesses as well. When did you know that you wanted to be a business owner and entrepreneur? Because for a lot of people, they think about doing it, they get scared to do it. Some people think it's all or no, well, all or nothing. But even taking it beyond that, going back to your family, you just said you have a special needs daughter. You've got a stepson. You've got a husband. You've got a life. You got to be able to breathe. You know what I mean? And then you take on being a financial coach, helping others. You got a business as well. When did you know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Why not just do the norm, just have the job and just leave it at that and just do that? Why add on the headache and hassle and the ups and downs of being a business owner? Like, how did you know that you wanted to do that? When did you realize that? And what keeps you going in that direction? Because being a business owner is one of the hardest things to do, period, whether a person is owning a franchise or owning a yeah, owning any kind of business,
Mhm.
self-employed, product, services, all of it. It's one of the hardest things to do. So going back to my question, when did you realize you wanted to be an entrepreneur and what keeps you going?
So I knew a long time ago, but I didn't necessarily know what that looked like because I would be lying if I didn't say that I didn't want to be the corporate woman that like got that executive position.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in New York City with my mom. My mom has never in my entire life that I've known her for 33 years has
Right.
never had a traditional job. She's always
Oh,
had like the entrepreneurial bug, but
okay.
just the need to have to be everywhere at one time with four kids and just her. Because there was no, can you pick so and so up from school? Because I'm at work.
Right.
Like that was not a reality for her. And so I think for me, part of it comes down to just my upbringing. Like my mom ran a daycare out of her apartment in New York at one point.
Wow.
So just watching like those little things. And the one thing I do remember is like my mom was always there. Like she was always at the school functions
Mm,
and it looked different because I had a lot of friends that their parents were never there. And I just didn't know what that meant growing up. And I say that
mm-hmm.
with so much respect because the working mom, that is hard. And I've
Exactly.
been the working mom that is like, how am I going to figure out being able to be at the therapy and like, can they give me time? And I gotta like,
Right.
breastfeed
So
at
many
work, all
moms
these
wish
things.
they could be at school
Yes.
functions because it's
And
hard.
and
Yeah.
so I say that so that if a working mom is listening to this, like your job is hard too. And whether you're a stay-at-home mom or a working mom, there's no like one position that's heavier than the other. Everybody's trying to do what the best thing is for their lifestyle. But
Mhm.
I just never saw like my mom didn't miss stuff. She was at the award stuff. And so it was partly that. And so growing up, after I started working in banking, I caught like that the executive bug. Like I saw these people and I'm just like, man, that's got to be cool. Like you work hard, you go to school, you get the degrees, you do the things. Like that was
Right.
the dream that I was sold essentially. And
Right.
so I did those traditional things and it was great for a while, but then life started to evolve. So that's the other thing, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes we adapt like this all or nothing mindset, like you said. And for some people, it is that. Like you are destined to be the best full-time entrepreneur ever. And I love that for people because I know really successful people that also have a great at-home life. And then I know really successful entrepreneurs that have no home life. Like it's gonna be
Right.
different for everybody. But for me, I think a pivotal moment where I said, like, I will never not be an entrepreneur is going through the pandemic. But even before that, when I first had to go back to work, I had really bad postpartum depression and anxiety when I had my daughter.
Wow.
And I tried to do all the things. Like, this is just a perfect example of like, give yourself some grace and know that even though you make all these decisions that you think are going to go exactly right, sometimes it goes left and you're like, all I got left is my spiritual source. Let me plug in and figure this thing out.
Right, right.
And I had really bad postpartum depression. And I remember I was on maternity leave. It was paid for like 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I was coming up on like the 6 week mark. And my mom, as amazing as she is, I never asked her to come here, but she moved from New York here for a year to watch my daughter because I had to end up going back to work. And I was like
Yeah,
trying to extend my leave. And I'm like, man, I had to take 6 extra weeks unpaid because they wouldn't extend any paid leave for me.
right,
It was in that moment that, and it was just a really emotional, vulnerable place. Like, I'm really allowing this company to tell me like I can't take care of myself for 6 more weeks.
right.
Because I knew something was off. And even at the time, he wasn't my husband, but he was just like, something's not right. And like, you got to go explore that because you're not yourself. You know, you go through all kind of stuff. If you ever have kids and you're listening to this, your whole everything
Hello.
changes.
To be able to recognize that something's going on after having a baby. A lot of times women don't realize that, and families aren't supportive. That's still, in my opinion, an area that's not being fully explored. We know we talk about mental therapy,
Hmm.
we talk about coaching business wise, but a lot of women are going through postpartum after having a baby and don't even know what it looks like because it's not
Yeah.
talked about. Like when I was having babies, people would call it the baby blues. That's what
Yeah.
I would hear, like, oh, they have the baby
Mhm.
blues. And so I didn't recognize, like, fortunately, I won't even say fortunately, it just was what it was. There were maybe one, I had to really think, y'all know I got five, but I think maybe one or maybe two children I had a little bit from it, but I had so much to do with having other children that I didn't even have time. I may have had postpartum with all five, I don't know,
Hmm.
but I just know I had so much to do with the next child that it was like I didn't have time to really unpack that. But when you can
Hmm.
recognize something's off kilter, like you said, you had it really bad, and the fact that you recognize that, that's a big
Yeah,
deal. That's a
it
big deal.
was, and I have to agree with you, man. I feel like, and it has a lot to do with just how our world operates now. Everything is
Mhm.
so fast paced, and you got to get back to work, and like we live in a busy place, right?
Yeah,
So I really don't feel like women going through that experience like they're getting enough support. And the truth is, most of them, a lot of them, don't even have the help to where, like you said, if they recognized it, like what are they, if they're single parent households, what are they going to do? Not wake up to take care of the other kids? Like it's not. And I'm
right,
grateful that I had the experience that I had, but I know that that's not everyone. I necessarily
right.
didn't know, like I knew something was off, but it took for him to be like, yeah, no, we got to figure this out
Yeah,
because
and that's good. Good on
this is,
him,
yeah.
because the average guy, they don't know. They just feel like, and sometimes they'll see how, when their mom had a baby,
Hmm.
they probably saw her go back to work or keep, if she didn't work outside the home, just keep it moving. So they may not even realize that some women do go
Hmm.
through some things after having a baby, and mentally and emotionally, they're not quite there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the
Yep.
fact that he recognized that, that's awesome.
It was. And I was just like, it was a very vulnerable place for me. And I think in that moment, I was just like, I will never not. And so obviously, like financially, that was a big hit for us because it was like, okay, he's
Yeah.
on paternity leave. Like he worked for a big corporation that paternity leave, which is also rare. Like some dads don't get time off and they keep going while mom is at home trying to figure out all the things. And
Wow.
so it was in that moment, like financially, that I was like, they can literally decide to not pay me, and that determines us putting food on the table. Like, so I just got to this place where it was like, it was personal, obviously, because we
Hmm.
have this new baby, we have this other child. And
Right.
so for me, it was just the decision that it doesn't necessarily mean you won't ever work a job again, but never let this be the only one way that you feed your
Hmm.
family. Like that's really what
Right.
it came down to. Because I'm not anti-job. Listen,
Of
we have
course.
great companies that we need great entrepreneurs. Like everybody's going to
Right.
play their role in the workplace, outside of the workplace.
Right.
But for me, it was just like that defining moment of you cannot rely on one way. We
Yeah.
just don't live in a time where you can. Like this is not the 90s where even
Right.
No, like if they would have known
even
any
then.
different, they
Right.
probably would have done a couple of things. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was in that moment. And I think the thing that's kept me is I've always made sure to go places where I feel like A, that I can add value, but that there's something I can really offer to people that can truly help them, not solely doing things. And don't get me wrong, I think every entrepreneur has been in this place where like you go so hard for like this one thing and then
Yeah.
it kind of let down in some seasons, but that's just a
Right.
part of the
And then they're
journey.
like,
Like
I'm never doing it
never do
again.
and then you
I'm never
find
gonna do
something else
yeah.
that you're passionate about. And I just think it's like that roller coaster that not everybody's built for. Like,
Yeah.
and the other part of it is like that all or nothing approach. Like, yes, that's going to be the approach for some people, but I want people to know too, like it could be a career and you could be a
Yeah.
part-time entrepreneur. Like
Yeah.
entrepreneurship to me just means the freedom to share value with the world in a specific area, whatever that might be, on your own terms. Like that's the
I like
definition for
that.
me because for I did health and wellness products for a while. Like before we were in the same company, I sold a coffee that I loved. That thing helped me through postpartum depression, just with the
Wow.
energy and like a clear mental state, like the mood
Mm-hmm.
stuff. I did that, but to me, it was still like I could do this on my own terms. I could do this when my
Mm-hmm.
daughter's sleeping. But it was giving value to other moms who I know how you feel, right? So
Right.
somebody wants to explore entrepreneurship and right now you work a full-time job, my advice would be find something that fills a need for people that you value, and
Mm-hmm.
you could be an entrepreneur too. Whether that's flex time, part time is on you. And I
Right.
think for me, the part that just keeps me going is if I just stay somewhere where I feel like I add value to this place or this product or this service, but we add value to people, then you're in the right place. But if you're somewhere where you're strictly doing it just for the money, I'm telling you right now, long term, it won't
Ooh.
work.
Ooh, I can bear witness
I was gonna say
on
every
that.
entrepreneur has done it. Like,
Yes.
especially if
Yes.
you get to a place where entrepreneurship is the only thing you were doing in that season, let's not like sugarcoat it. Everybody has done it because you're like, nobody takes a bow of poverty to do entrepreneurship. Like you don't say, let me
Right.
do this thing and then I'm okay with being broke for 17
Right.
months. Like,
Exactly.
but there are months where you're gonna be like, so this is not what I knew I signed up for, but I guess
Right.
this is the season, the winter that they talk
Oh,
about.
so y'all ain't nobody else gonna talk about
Nope.
this, you know, right?
Nobody's
We
going to
don't
say
talk
that
about that.
we've had
Right.
no action at all. And so
Right.
I think that that's the part of you just got to find a place where you add value and that you value because then you're more prone to sticking out those tough seasons. But if
Mhm.
you go somewhere just for money, the minute that it gets tough like that, you're going to find the
Yeah.
next thing that can help you produce.
Yeah.
And my coach now, he always says the further away you get from the client, the more money you will make
Mm-hmm.
because you're
Mm-hmm.
constantly growing your value. And
Mm-hmm.
the further away you get from actually producing all the time, that's going to make you the most money over time.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be in like that producer mode, like always,
Right.
what can I get from? No, I want to be
Right.
where I can truly add value to people. And a lot of what I do now is literacy based, which I love because I get to
Oh, I
fulfill
like
like my
that.
little teaching bug. So
Yeah.
it's a journey, and I just wish more people would share. Like, there's gonna be hard hard months, sometimes hard
Right.
years.
Right. Right.
And when
And
you
it
study
is.
traditional business, it had like businesses for most they go out of business within the first 5 years. So if you try entrepreneurship, it doesn't work out the first two or three times, you'll be okay. Like,
Exactly.
but
And
nobody's
then,
perfect.
right. And then when you think about it too, when it comes to business, when you think about how many businesses have gone up and down, even after the 5 years, I mean, Amazon for years only sold books. The only thing you could get on Amazon were books. No one in their wildest dreams could think that you could order a sofa off of
Yep.
Amazon and get it delivered in 2 days, or you could get groceries. I mean, we look at Apple, we look at all these products, and sometimes, again, especially now, and ironically, a lot of these companies have put forth this instant mentality because that's what we see. Like, as I was saying earlier, we see the end result. We don't see all the years that these companies went through, these ups and downs and years of making no money. And when it comes to entrepreneurship, for those that are doing things outside of the home or not outside of the home, but working a business on the side, it's like you got to stick it out. You know what I mean? If you really want it,
Yeah.
and at the same time, it's okay to try again. It's
Yep.
always okay to begin again. I'm 61 years old. I feel like I'm going into another phase of my life, and it's just
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm doing something else now.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I think that's okay. I think it's great. Not just because I'm doing something, but just the fact that I think one of the most beautiful gifts of life is that you always get to reinvent yourself. And
Yep.
when you do that, it's completely up to you. There's no timeline on it.
Yes. I was
Society
just
puts
saying
that
that
on
this
us.
morning.
Yeah.
Like this morning, I literally said to a group of our people, like, the beauty that you got today was the fact that you don't have to wait till Monday to do something different. You don't have to wait till next year. You can literally say, okay, if you want to change how you dress today, you can literally hop in your car and like go buy new shirts. If you
Right.
want to change the fact that you haven't worked out in 3 years, go for a walk. Like it just takes not even 90 seconds of insane courage to just say like I'm gonna do something different.
Yeah.
And so what if it doesn't work exactly like you thought? Especially if you're like if you're a parent or if you've been through anything hard, I always tell people you got through that. So like any decision that you make is not gonna like very few things are like, oh, this is life or death, girl. If I make this left decision, it might not, work out well. So what, right? If you've been through
Oh,
anything tough, like parenthood, it's the hardest hood, okay?
exactly.
Nobody
Exactly.
was ready for that. I don't care how much somebody said they planned the pregnancy and the birth
Right.
story.
Right.
Something
And
went
the
left that you
books
did
and the
not anticipate.
videos. I was just telling someone the other day, and I said, for those that have had children, you're carrying this child for 9 months. You're excited in the beginning, in most cases, you're excited in the beginning. Your eating habits have to change. Your body's changing. Your body is going to change in ways when you've had your first baby. Your body's going to change in ways you could have never anticipated, even with watching the videos of YouTube, the pictures, and your aunt over here and somebody over there telling you all this stuff that's going to happen because you learn more about what happens when you're pregnant when you're pregnant, because
Right.
everybody, even strangers, will come up and tell you
Yep.
what their experience was. So you go
Hmm.
through that. You're watching your body completely change in 9 months physically, but it's also changing on the inside. When I had my first baby, as most women, when they had their first baby, it like you don't know what to expect at all, and your body is changing way more on the inside than what is on the outside. You're seeing the
Hmm.
weight gain, you're seeing your stomach, you're seeing, features, blow up feet, all, but what's happening inside is
Yeah.
so much more than what comes out on the outside or what you see on the outside, right? So then you go through that and then labor comes. Oh my God.
I just knew I
Nobody
was
can
going to
tell
be natural.
Nobody can tell you about labor. They can tell you, they can give you descriptions, they can say all they can, but it's not until you go through the labor. My first child was born through cesarean after, like, I'd been in labor for 22, 23 hours, and the rest of them I had naturally. I just did not want to go through another cesarean again. And so, but when you go through that second that second pregnancy, and that pain starts coming, that I'm getting sidetracked because I'm thinking about that childbirth at the time. I was like, let me have the cesarean. And she fortunately was like, no, you said you wanted to do the natural. So anyway, but my point is, I got off track just that quick. My point is, your body goes through all these changes for 9 months. You are
Mhm.
going through labor. Those of you that have delivered babies, you are going through the most incredible hurtful pain your body has ever gone through, and you don't even know how you can survive. You don't even know. You're
Mhm.
pushing out this human being, and it's just like, oh my God. And it is so incredibly painful, but what's so amazing is right after that baby pops out, all the pain is gone, like clearly,
Mhm.
like your body just went through this whole transformation and stuff is doing, and the pain, you don't even think about the pain. You see this beautiful baby, you're not even they can be stitching you up. Sorry fellas if I'm getting
Mhm.
too detailed for some of y'all. Like, they can literally stitch you up with no anesthesia,
Yep.
after having that baby, because your focus is on this beautiful baby that you have in your arms. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
it's like, it's amazing when you think about it in terms of business and in terms of life and in terms of going through tough things, not even just business, but in terms of going through tough things, like you said earlier, you've gone through tough things before. You can get through this next tough thing because everything changes. Everything will pass, everything will change. That's for certain, you know. And so, those of you that are going through tough times, whether it's in your personal life or your business life, or sometimes it can be all of it happening at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like one thing I've learned being 61 years old, that the things that I thought, I was just talking with one of my sons about this the other night, the things that I thought was so important in my 30s, in my 20s and 30s, oh my God, and when you look back on it, it's like, that wasn't even, I shouldn't even got
Wow.
been out of shape about that. That wasn't even that big of a deal. And you learn it, I think, more so when you become a grandparent, because this is why you hear and you experience it. You've got your children have grandparents, and it's like, you're as a grandparent, you let your grandchildren get away with things that you would have probably threatened to, you know what I
Never.
mean? Yeah, would have never done that with your own
Yeah.
kids. But you just realize, I think you get to a point where you realize, you know what? It's just not, everything is not as serious as you think it is. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And you have to learn. And when you can adjust, when you can take that same mentality, so take the same mentality of a grandparent today, no matter, even if you're nowhere near being a grandparent, but take that same mentality and realize what's really important. You know what I mean? Like getting, like you said earlier, what are your values? Determining what do you really want for you, not
Mhm.
for your kids, not for your husband, not for your wife, not for the neighbors, not for your mom and daddy. Like, what do you really want? And then get in alignment with that. And then once you do that, then it's like, okay, let's talk. Let's talk with my spouse. Let's get in alignment. Let's get our back, because I know what I want. Now let's find out what he or she wants, and let's get
Yeah.
it in alignment. Now together we know what it is we want for our children. Let's get in
Yeah.
alignment with that. Now we know what I want to do on this job. Let me get in alignment with this company's values. Now I
Yeah.
know what I want to do with this business. Let me get in alignment with what,
Mhm.
values that I have for this business.
Yep.
And I think when things like that happen, but it has to start with what you just said, or what you said earlier. It has to start with you knowing what it is
Yep.
you want. You know what I mean?
Oh,
And it's
that's so
tough. And when
good.
you don't know what you want,
Yeah.
get a coach. Just like you're a financial coach. You're a coach who has a coach.
Yeah.
It's like I heard someone say this the other day. They said, I don't want a therapist who has never had therapy.
Yeah, it's it and it to your point, like once you know though, or at least you're starting to search, because I think the first piece is just awareness. Once you start to
Hmm.
really become aware, then you just got to make a decision on what do I want, whether it's career, fitness, whatever. I remember the journey with Amara, like her diagnosis, and we come from Black and brown family, Hispanic, my husband is Black, and we don't come from families where like special needs and all that stuff is talked
Right.
about. And
Right.
so we had to come together and say, like, okay, what is the mindset that we share around this? You express yours, I express mine, but then
Right.
collectively, what mindset do we have to have? Because she
Oh,
counts
that's
on us
so
to get this
good.
thing done.
That's
And
so
so we
good.
just made the agreement without all the outside noise. Like, what do we value? And at the end of the day, the value was sure, I believe that like food and some other things are linked to all this. Don't get me wrong. I don't ignore
Hmm.
the science. But right now, right here, right now, there's still a little girl that counts on us every single day to make sure she gets some kind of equipment, like just being equipped in general. So
Yep.
it was the mutual agreement in what do we value. Forget the outside noise. Family is going to say, oh, leave that girl alone. She'll talk whenever she's ready. I'm not
Yep.
debating with you.
Yeah.
However, our value is different. Our value is in the sentiment that our job in the meantime is to equip her with every possible tool that she needs so that she's not delayed.
Yep.
And so to your point though, you got to know what you value, because if we didn't know in that moment to make the decision to say, okay, what is it that we value in terms of a diagnosis, or what route are we going to go with ABA or in home, like all these things,
Hmm.
everybody can always tell you what they think you should do because they're not the ones going through that thing.
Yep.
Like I had a client that we were just talking about, she makes really good money right now, but she's like, I hate my job. And I'm like, "Ooh, thank you for the transparency. You're not the
Right.
only person that feels like that." And
Yeah.
she wants to be a vet. And I was like,
Oh,
that's
wow.
shocking. You love animals? Okay. She's been in like a corporate role her whole career. She's
Wow.
young though, still. She's like 38 years old.
Yeah.
We had the conversation and I was just asking her questions. Like, I know I'm your financial coach, but like, let me talk to you about some life stuff. How
Right.
long is vet school? Like, what would you have to do to go back? And I think it was like 8 or 9 years left, right?
Yeah.
So I asked her a question. I won't say her name, but I
Of
said,
course.
what is the difference? Like, and I told her, you tell me what the difference is. I said, do you want to be at the job that you're at right now 9 years from now? She said,
Mm,
no. I said, okay, then why would you stay?
mm,
Question one. But then the other question was, I just said, would you prefer to be, okay, she's what, 39? So 9 years, she'd be 48.
mm-hmm,
I said, so would you rather be 48 and still hating the job that you have now, or would you rather be 48 and be a vet?
mm,
And she's
mm.
like, I
Oh, that's
never really,
good.
but that's like sometimes we get so stuck in like what it should look like or
Yeah.
what we should be doing or whatever. And the crazy thing is like there's no ruler hanging above your head that says
It's not.
Sakina is right here in life. Next week you better be right here. Like
It's
there's
oh,
nothing
that's so
like that.
good. I'm sure you literally rocked her whole world because we get so stuck on what, like you said, what it
I've done
should
it.
look like. It's like, oh, me too. And it's like you said, 9 years from now, not Lord willing, 9 years
Right.
is gonna
Because that's
come
the
for
other
her.
thing. You're
It's
arrogant to
gonna
think you
come for
even got
her.
9 years.
Right, right. But it's like 9 years will come for her, Lord willing. And it's like, so would you rather be like, okay, I'm a vet today, or dang, I'm still at this job 9 years later that I hate? It's like because it's
Mhm.
gonna come and go. 9 years is gonna pass whether or not we're in it or
Either
not. It's
way.
gonna pass.
Hmm.
Somebody's gonna see 9 years. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Because people get so afraid, and it's just like you don't have anything to lose except
Yep.
for the regret that you have for not doing it. You know what I mean? It's like, why not go for it? And kind of going back to what you said too about your daughter, you and your husband made that decision to be in alignment with what is best for your child. And I think, and that's a whole nother conversation, where like when it comes to your children, you got to be on the same page, whether you're together, husband and wife, or
Yeah.
separate, or single parent and single father, single mother. It's like, getting the noise out, and being in alignment, like figuring out, okay, what is it that I need for this child, and getting the right help for that child, and forgetting the ego, forgetting all of that, because all of that can come into a play, even
Yeah.
when someone is like, going, and then kind of tying this back to what you said about the young lady wanting to be a vet. And sometimes people don't even realize even that's ego involved when we start
Yeah.
making excuses as to why we can't do something. That's
Mhm.
ego. There's still ego still plays a part in
Yeah.
that. It's just like you're like, why I can't do that because that takes too long, or that's going to take so much time. And it's like,
Hmm.
who are you to say that? Who are you to be so arrogant? And I don't mean your person, I'm just meaning in general.
No,
Like,
but in general,
who are
yeah.
you to be so arrogant? And my own mouth is closer to my own ears. So, y'all, I'm talking to myself way quicker first before I talk to anybody else. But it's like, who are you to say that you can't do such and such and such, or it's going to take X amount of time and X amount of work? Yeah, anything worth having really is. I hope she becomes
Yep.
a vet. I hope she doesn't,
I know. I'm like,
because she
and
could still go to
a lot
school.
of our, yeah, a lot of our relationships have to be long term just because of their plans and stuff. But I'm like, I
Yeah,
just really want to see your life 9 years from now. God,
yeah,
I'm still here too, but
right, right. I mean,
it's just
yeah,
that sentiment though, like, man, if you just figure out what you value, because I love to celebrate all of it. I love to celebrate the people that are steadfast at that thing for 10 years and now they're starting to see the fruit of that. I
yeah,
love that. But then there's also
exactly,
beauty in the person that is not afraid to reinvent because
exactly.
everybody's going to be on a different path. And if you can just, they say cliche things like tunnel vision. To me,
Ooh,
I'm just like, all that really means is what do you want?
yeah,
And sometimes be okay with different seasons are going to maybe warrant a different version of you
yeah.
because 10 years
Oh,
ago might not be
absolutely.
anything near what you wanted. Like I remember being 20 years old and making some stupid money decisions. Like I wanted a brand new Chrysler 300 all souped up,
Right. Woo,
a stupid payment I couldn't even really afford. We don't want to talk about that, but that's what I valued at 19 years old. I was coming
Yep.
from New York City. I didn't have transportation. Like that was what I valued. Today,
Yep.
you won't catch me buying a $75,000 car. Not because anybody can make it happen and go sign for a car, but it's just
Absolutely.
not what I value.
Yep.
That might be different. Somebody might have worked their butt off for the last 20 years and they might value going to feel good about sitting in a car that they love every day.
Yep.
And I love that for them. But that's why
Exactly.
you have to know what you value. Just like some people might value the big, big home because they want to entertain or have
Yep.
family. And somebody might value the country lifestyle with just their dogs, their chickens. I'm
Right.
happy either way because that just means, like, when I see people do any of those things, stay steadfast in something long or just pivot completely, I'm
Yep.
like, dang, because they both take courage. They both take like a different piece of you because to stay
Yep.
steadfast in something for 10 or 15 years, that takes resilience. But
Exactly.
then to pivot
Exactly.
completely and release your identity from, like, for her, like you've built this identity in being a corporate executive. I know
Yep.
that feeling. But
Yep.
to be able to release that and say, I'm gonna go be a vet, people are gonna look at you like you lost your freaking mind.
Exactly. They're gonna look at it. She had three heads. That girl lost her mind. She left that good job, that
Right,
good
right.
career,
But then
to
it's
go work
like
on dogs.
that takes insane courage. So
Hmm.
it's like either way it goes, I
That's
think when you
awesome.
just get to a place where you know what you value, your perspective starts to change when you look around and just observe. I wouldn't even say, watch or see because you don't know
Mhm.
somebody's real life, but when you know your values and what you're working on internally, externally, and then you start to observe other people's lifestyles, you can't help but to like just feel good about whatever they have going on because that just means it's in direct proportion with whatever they might value. And I think we got to be okay with that.
I love that. I love that. I want to ask you this too, as we kind of tie all of this together here and summarize this. You take care of so many people. You take care of your clients through your financial coaching business. You take care of your clients through your own entrepreneur business. You take care of your husband. You take care of your kids. What does Francis Gillard do to take care of herself? What do you do
Oh.
that's just for you?
This is a hard question that I now know how to answer because I've gotten help.
I love that.
So I'll be honest, that is something that I struggled with hard. Like from the time I had Amara till now, honestly, like I'm still figuring out
Hmm.
what do I enjoy? Like outside of being like a full schedule, therapies, and making time for date nights. Like, by the way, if it's not scheduled, it does not happen, down to time for me.
Right.
So I had to get to this place. I back to action. I knew that I didn't have a rein on that part of my life. And I knew that because I was hitting this wall of like frustration and resentment often.
Hmm.
And I kept getting to this place where I'm like, little things are like so irritating. Like things that you know don't matter, they
Yeah.
started to matter more often. And I'm like, why am I so annoyed? Like,
Hmm.
and I just had to like really sit and I forget it was an audio book that somebody had sent me. And dang, if I could think of the name, I would give it out. But I listened to an audio book and the woman like that was doing the voiceover, the message was basically like, you're not spending enough time with yourself when you're easily frustrated with other people. And I was like,
Mm. Oh,
I
that's
mean, down
good.
to like your circuit, like with the kids. Obviously, my daughter can be a lot, and I know that. But it was like more often. So I think that just comes with also paying attention to yourself, like getting to a place where you can say, like, I got to this place where I was like, I don't even know like what kind of clothes I like anymore, or like what do I like to do? Because I was always like in the race of taking care of everybody else's stuff. And I did something that most people won't ever do. I was still working a corporate position. This was a couple months ago, and I took a leave. Like I took a leave of absence, and I said, you got to pick one activity that you really enjoy that you're going to go do at least once a week. And again, I know that that's extreme. If you're listening to this, you don't got to take leave from work to figure this out. But for me, I had the opportunity to do it, and I was just like, why not? Like I had so many
Yeah.
back-to-back seasons of stuff and just therapy and just heavy everybody that I was like, I need some solid time for me, a couple weeks just to do some things. And I didn't know what some of those things were. So I
Yeah.
started seeing my therapist more often. I started to see her every week.
Hmm.
And we got to talking, and she said something to me. Well, two things that really changed everything. And I hope if somebody's listening to this, that this frees you in some kind of way. The first thing she said to me is, Francis, you don't realize that you continue to accept trauma by being the go-to person for everyone. And I said, what?
Wow.
It
Wow.
made me think though. And she was like, think about it. People know that they can call you and just dump on you. And what you'll say, is there anything that I can do for you? She said, that's the wrong answer. She said, that's the wrong thing to say to people. She said, I need you to practice this for the next couple weeks. And when people call you and it is not your direct assignment, meaning you and the people that live in your house, you're going to say this exact thing to them. And she said, you're going to say, wow, that sounds heavy. How do you plan to fix that?
Ooh,
I
girl,
said,
you probably just freed up a whole bunch of people with that.
I wrote that thing down so
Wow.
fast. My little hairs are standing.
Wow. I was gonna say, I think I got some goosebumps over
But when
here off
she
of that.
said that, I had never thought
Wow.
about that. And
Yeah.
about codependent behavior in a way that I had never heard it be explained.
Hmm.
About how people that constantly have always like had to fix things, maybe growing up, you keep that mentality that you're supposed to allow people in to make them think that you're going to take on their stuff. She said, what you don't realize is when people call you and dump on you like that, it's because they don't want to take responsibility for their situation. They might not say
True.
that out loud, and it may not
Right.
even, they may not even know that that's what that means. But the
Hmm.
minute you say, how can I fix it? You now took on their problem. You basically told them, you don't have to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out
Like, I
for you.
got you. I got you. Like,
So
ride or
she
die. I
said,
got you.
yeah. So she
Wow.
said, I need you to start saying, wow, that sounds heavy. How do you plan to fix it? Because you're stressed out and bent all out of shape and don't know what you even like because you're taking on everyone else's assignments that were never meant for you and your own. And I said, well, dang, she said, down to your mama. Now, look, my mom is a soft spot for me because I'm like, I'm a mama's girl. You know, I
Like,
look out for
uh-oh.
my mom.
Right, you're right.
But she was like, your mom is an adult and your mom is making whatever decision she wants to make. It is not your job to fix everything she calls you about. And I
Yeah.
said, duly noted. So that was the first piece of advice that I was like, man, that changed everything. So now when people call me, I'm like, I'm listening because I'm
Right, of
empathetic. I
course.
get
Of
it. Life
course.
is happening.
Right.
Man, that sounds heavy. What are your plans? Like, and if they don't have any, I'm sure you'll figure it out. You're really, really smart. Like,
Hmm.
these are things that I had never thought to say to people because I was so used to just being like the go-to
Yeah,
person.
fixing it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the second thing that she challenged me
That's so good.
was she was like, I need you to find at least one to two things that you enjoy, and I need you to schedule them. I don't care what else is happening in your life. She was like,
Hmm.
because let me ask you a question. When your daughter needs to have therapy twice a week outside of her normal routine, where do
Hmm.
you show up twice a week? Therapy. When you dad needs to go to football and you need to go to this other function, where are you always at? Where you need to be. So why
Hmm.
are you not where you need to be for you? And I was like, that's a good question. I don't know
Mm.
the answer to that. And so what I
Mm.
did was I picked two things. And so she asked me, what are like off the top of your head,
Right.
what is something that you do every day that you truly enjoy? And I was like, well, I like going to the hot sauna place, Hot Works. I don't always
Right.
make time for it, but I love it because it's like hot in there. You get to just relax. It's not super high intensity. You could do yoga and just clear your head.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I love coffee. Anybody that knows me in real life, you'll
Right.
find me drinking some coffee somewhere. And I'm
Right.
the person that I'm gonna spend $50 a month on trying like little random coffee shops now because I'm
Right. So
such
I
a
see
big
you on
head.
Instagram
You
every
know,
morning. You making
yeah,
that
like my,
coffee.
my
Yeah.
support has shifted from like last year. I don't support certain companies, but
Hmm.
I'm like, I love like, so now I've had this thing where like I love to just go find a new spot in town and I'll just like post up there, grab like one of their random drinks and, talk to the people, like just get out into the community more
Yeah.
because that was something that I wasn't doing. And so during that whole time, every single week, I had to schedule 2 hours for those things. 1 hour to go find a coffee somewhere,
Yeah.
and then 1 hour to make it to a sauna location. And
Hmm.
so so I guess my point is I had to start saying no to some things that really weren't serving me outside of draining
Okay.
my energy, stressing me out, so that I could say yes to myself. Because the thing that you don't realize is, so many times we think like, operating with this cape on is just the biggest, greatest thing, when we
Girl.
don't realize that really what that's doing is showing other people to not value you as much. I know that that sounds crazy,
Ooh,
but
ooh,
they're placing all of
good.
their needs above yours because you allow them to. And I love my husband, don't get me wrong. I
Of
love
course,
my
of
kids. But the
course.
truth is we sometimes wear like this freaking superhuman cape when we were never designed to operate like that. Like you, if you're drinking out of a coffee mug that's now empty, by the way,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
when I started drinking this, I was taking one sip at a time. So every
mm-hmm,
time someone is requiring something of me, I'm sipping the coffee mug, just an analogy. But now that it's
mm.
empty and I haven't done anything for myself, what's left? There is nothing. So now we wonder why our anxiety's up, we're short-tempered, we feel resentment, nobody's helping me with stuff around here.
Right.
I've said that plenty of times.
Right. Oh my God. When my kids were younger, I would be so frustrated.
Yeah, I
And it
never
was
have
like,
time for myself.
yep.
And so what I had to learn to do was go back to my favorite question. Well, what's the alternative? Well, I can get up a little bit earlier. So now, like, you got to call in help too. Some of those same people that count on you, help them hold you accountable. If it's a husband, kids, whoever. Now, my husband, I'm like, the days that I'm struggling to wake up, shake me up so I could get out the bed so I could still have my hour of time just for myself.
Yeah. Oh, I like
So
that. I
I
like
you
that.
just gotta make it a priority because we can't technically manage time. I don't know how many times I done pray for 27 hours. They ain't never given it to me. Okay.
Not
But
27.
we got
Not
the same
27.
20, right? We have the same 24. And I mean, sure, some days you're gonna feel like you're killing it at
Yep.
everything, and then some days you're gonna feel like everybody's taking everything from you. But if
Yep.
you just schedule it in, and so my rule now is just two things every week. It doesn't have to be drastic or anything, but
Mm-hmm.
in those 2 hours out of a whole, I don't even know, 100 and however many hours there are in a week. But I got two to say, I don't have to take care of anybody for this hour. I could
Yeah.
just sweat and mind my business.
I
I can
love
pull up
that.
at a random coffee shop and just like meet new people. My phone, I'm not texting anybody. I might make a cute little boomerang thing for social
Right.
media. Outside of that, I'm sitting there, I'm learning about these people's coffee, I'm learning about the people that work there.
Mhm.
And so now I pull up there and they know my order. Like
Right,
just
right.
you get it's something for me though. Like I
Right.
didn't have to go pick up a kid in that moment. I didn't have to cook dinner for my family in that moment. And so I think so many of us just don't make it a priority because in your defense, you were never taught to do that. And so you have to
Ooh.
reteach yourself how to do life the way you want though, right? Because
Girl, that's so many.
there's people who are going to tell
Yeah.
you things all
Yeah.
day, but how do you want to do life? And I don't know about nobody else, but you can have the superhuman badge. I had that one. It sucks. It doesn't feel great. I never have time for myself. I don't exercise. I'm even bigger in physique during those seasons because I'm not taking care of myself. So the question
Ah,
was, okay, well, how do you want to do life? Well, I don't always want to be super stressed out because then you'll
yeah.
realize, like you said, as you get older, most things don't even matter.
It
Okay,
doesn't
you want cheese
matter.
balls the second time today? Fine. You get that one
Yeah.
pack today for the week and then you're done. Like,
Right. Because when I was younger, I used to, and you hit on it. Man, you hit on it. You said, like you said, got rid of the red cape, and when you're frustrated, because I remember being younger when my kids were younger, and I would be so frustrated. At the time I was married, I'd be so frustrated. You don't help me, you don't do enough, you don't do this, you this. But then I would take on everything myself because I felt like
mhm,
he couldn't do it the way I could do it. I might as well do this. The kids, they can't do it the way I can do it. So, and then I would be frustrated. I'm doing everything. I'm taking on everything. You know what I mean? I'm clean it up this way, or the more I clean up, the house would get messier, or just, and I'm just throwing different things out there,
mhm,
but just when you take on that mentality that you don't need nobody else and that you gonna fix it and you gonna do it your
mhm.
way, and then you're still frustrated, you're lying to yourself. You're
Man.
lying to yourself. And you couldn't have paid me. You could not have paid me when I was younger. There were times in my life you could not have paid me to believe that, because I
Yep.
felt like, never mind, I'll do it. There's different things that you'll see. Like, I think there's a reel out there that shows, and it's like when your wife, it says something like, when your wife asks you to bring in the furniture and you don't move fast enough. Then they show her pulling it in, and her and her
Hmm.
neighbor or friend pulling it in. And it's like, yeah, that's cute and funny, but there's some other things behind that, because now she's
Oh
pissed off
yeah.
the rest of the day
Oh
because
yeah.
she had to
Because
do it.
why didn't you put it together for me?
Exactly.
It wasn't
Exactly.
until I went out of town for a business event and I would do the same thing. I would never forget during the whole postpartum thing. Johnny would tell me, "Well, Francis, you're always complaining that I don't help you, but then the minute she starts crying, you don't let me pick her up." And
Yep.
it really didn't register in that season. But it wasn't until I went out of town for a business event that I was like so worried. Mind you, I know he got this.
Right.
But that part of you, like that controlling, that ego, is really pride to think that you're good enough to do all of that stuff. You were never built to, but it's
Exactly.
pride and ego.
People
So
need
I never
people.
forget. I went out of town and I'm like thinking about my daughter, and I'm texting like, how's she doing? And he's like, girl, if you don't quit texting me, she's fine. And it wasn't until he had FaceTime me, my baby had a little dad ponytail. She done went to school with this
Right,
little
right.
dad ponytail, tearing up a cupcake, happiest kid ever. And it was
Happy.
in that
Yes.
moment that I was like, and you do all of that. Why? Just to feel like, oof, I did it. All that is because of me. No, I don't even
That
want that.
is, oh my, and to the fact that you're learning that you've learned that at your age, being young, that will save you so much time, headache, and hassle, because it's like you don't have to do it all, and you can't do it all. It ain't even
No.
a matter of you don't have to do it all. You cannot do it all. And when you're trying to do it all, and that goes for single moms, single dads,
Yep.
couples, spouses, all of that, when you're trying to do it all, and if you got children involved, your children are the ones suffering.
Oh
Your
yeah. Oh
children are
yeah.
suffering, and you're suffering because you can't do it all. And then you're pissed off. You're pissed off at the
Yep.
world. You can wake up on Monday and be fine, and by Wednesday you pissed off, and you don't even
Oh
understand
yeah.
why, or you think it's this, it's that, he,
And
she.
it's
It's
not.
like, no,
Mhm.
it's you, boo. It's you. You're
Yep.
the one common denominator in all. Of that chaos.
Yep.
But I'm so
Man,
glad
I learned that the
you
hard
shared.
way.
Oh man, like I said, the fact that you learned that being young, and that is such a blessing. That's such a gift to yourself, that ultimately your family will also benefit from, because that's a gift when yeah, I need some help. Yeah, I don't have to be the one to do it all, and I can open my mouth and ask for help. And there's no
Man.
shame in that. There's no shame in that.
And
You
that
know,
was the struggle. You wore like that thing of pride where it was
yeah.
like you don't want to ask for help, but then you're pissed off when you don't get
Because you
help
don't get
because
help, and people can't read your mind,
if
and
you're
men
not
especially.
asking. Oh my
Men
gosh.
especially, when they see that you're handling it anyway, and you
Yep.
feel like they don't even know what
They're
to
not
ask.
gonna
They don't even know what to
no.
ask in this day and time, because they'll get their head bit off if they don't say it the
Uh-huh.
right
My
way.
pastor was like, so you're basically saying we went to premarital counseling, and he was like, so you're basically saying that he should have known what you were thinking? And I was like,
Right.
okay, so I'm the problem.
Right. So you mean that
And
yeah.
that's the thing, like we don't even realize, and that's the part of like it's so important to get a coach in some kind of capacity because, or just wisdom companions, right? Like
Yep.
somebody that's wise in the spiritual realm of whatever you
Yep.
believe in, somebody that's wise in business that has some kind of longevity and like real skin in the game, because
Yep.
they can tell you, one of my really good friends, she always says you can't read the label that's on the box when you're in the box. So
Mm,
like, you know,
mm.
sometimes when you're in that thing, you don't even realize that you operate the way that you do,
You can't
especially if
see
these are
it.
like habits from childhood. Because a lot of us
Yeah.
who don't know how to ask for help, who wear that superhuman badge, that comes from a deeply rooted place.
And we
So,
were raised 9 times out of 10 by a single mom, or
yeah,
either a mom who was in a dysfunctional relationship where she felt like she had to do everything.
yep,
And therefore that's what you see. And it's
yeah.
oh,
They
like,
didn't have a
oh,
choice. Like for some of us, like when you really look at going back deeper, they didn't have a choice because I'm pretty sure if they could have asked somebody for help, they probably would have. But so many of us are in different dynamics now that we got to let down the ego and say, like, okay, if you are in a situation where you can ask for help, you have to start to do work on you to ask yourself, why is it so hard for me to ask
Yes.
for help? Or why is it so hard for me to tell someone what I want and then allow them to meet that expectation?
Right. And then ask yourself, do you want to continue to pass that crap on to your own kids? Do
Yep.
you want your kids to be that person or those people that
Yep.
don't ask for help, that don't, because they'll never grow? I was just
That's so
telling
deep.
one of my sons, I'm trying to think of which one it was because I've had some deep conversations with a couple of them these past few days. And I was reminding them, I said, I know exactly what it was now. If you're the smartest one in your group, if you're the
Hmm.
smartest one in your group, that's a problem. And some people will take it as a badge of honor
Yeah.
that they're learning from me. They're growing. And it's like, no, you got to learn. You got to
Yep.
grow. You know what I mean? Girl, we can
Yep.
talk about this all day. I love this. If
Man.
we were in the same city, we could this would
I
be going on 3 or 4
know.
hours, but I am so appreciative of you. I really appreciate you sharing too what you do to take care of yourself because I think that's so important because we take care of
Yeah.
so many people, even, whether, and I would ask that same question if I was even speaking to a man, because a
Yeah.
lot of times we think as women, which we do take on a lot without a doubt, but
Hmm.
men take on a lot too.
Oh
And it's
yeah.
individually, we have to learn how to take care of ourselves
Oh
too.
yeah.
We
My
got
husband
to
was in
learn
the
that.
same position, like as I was asking myself with therapy and stuff, like he had to ask himself the same questions because I didn't
Yes.
even realize till the whole premarital counseling like experience how much they truly take on, but also everything else that they feel like they have to take on without even
Yep.
saying anything.
Yep.
So it's like you get to hear the other side and you're like, oh my gosh, I never, until he said it the way he did, I had never even thought about that. Like to hear
Right.
someone say the weight of what comes with being a black man with
Mhm.
a family as soon as I walk out these doors, it doesn't really resonate till you hear it come out of their mouth. So for him learning the same things, it's an hour of yourself for the gym.
Yep.
He's got like a book club with guys, like just
Oh,
doing
that's so
something for
cool. I love
you,
that.
but you don't really know to get to those places until you start asking those hard questions. Like so
Hmm.
many people want to just act like we got it all together. No, we don't. And
Mm.
to have to pretend like you do, like I hope that
Ah,
that's freeing to somebody. Like you do not have to have it all together. And I promise you that you're going to relate to so many more people when you realize we're all having a similar experience.
exactly.
Your deck of cards just
Exactly.
looks a little different than mine.
Yep. Exactly. And the children, those, that have children, the children get to benefit from that. When you
Yeah.
realize that, your children get to benefit. And
Yep.
and even outside of that, like, your children, your community, your
Yeah.
neighborhood, your neighbors,
Yep.
it just permeates, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Thank you so much, girl. You finished your
Yeah.
cup of
Thanks
coffee.
for
I
having me.
almost, I almost finished my
Yeah. Well, in
cranberry,
your defense,
apple.
yours was taller than mine.
It was taller. It was taller, that's for sure.
But
But I
no, thank you for having me. I
Oh,
appreciate
you
you.
are so welcome. I appreciate you so much for taking your time with me today and just sharing this wisdom.
Sure.
And we'll definitely include like your Instagram and social media because what platforms are you on so people can reach out because you're a hell of a coach, and you have great content. So I definitely want people to be able to reach out to you.
Thank you. I mean, I'm pretty much everywhere TikTok. I'm having fun with TikTok these days. I don't spend a whole lot of time there, but
Mhm.
my name is the same on every platform, Francis Gillard. On Instagram specifically, though, you can find it under Financial Money Coach, and it'll come up with
Yeah.
my name. The picture looks the same, but yeah, I'm just, I'm in this place where I'm like, let's just keep giving people value, letting them know, like,
Yeah.
man, you'll make it through whatever that thing is, and then the next thing you'll have to make it through that too.
Exactly. You got to get through this thing so you
Yes.
can be prepared for the next thing because it's
Exactly.
coming. Whatever it is,
Exactly.
it's coming.
Yep.
Thank
But
you
this is
so
going to be
much.
great. I hope you reach every single person that is meant to hear this because it's going to be really good.
I hope so because I do. I think it's just so important to just have real conversations, real authentic, just
Yep.
unscripted. I didn't know exactly what I was going to ask you. You certainly didn't know what I was going to ask. So it's
Mhm.
just nice to just have just unscripted, just off the cuff conversations, but yet,
Yeah.
you bring so much value. So I'm so excited to be able to do
Thank
this with you and
you.
talk with you. You are
Yeah.
so welcome. Thank you. Okay, you guys. So I'm going to end this right now. And at some point, it's going to be uploaded. You all will be able to reach out on YouTube. That's most likely where I'm going to put it. I'll also probably put clips and things like that across my social media. But thank you so much for tuning in today. And if you like what you saw, definitely give it a thumbs up, subscribe, all that stuff you're supposed to do when you have a YouTube channel and you're supposed to tell people to do all that stuff. Y'all know what to do. All right, peace. Okay. Hold on. I don't want it. Oh, shoot.